Hello and welcome to Wisdom for Wannabes. I am the host, Jackie Moriali. Today I am providing a warm welcome for a featured guest named Scott Vogel. Scott has spent the past 9 years at Loggerhead Marine Life Center as well as Bush Wildlife Sanctuary in Juno Beach and Jupiter, Florida, as a volunteer educator as well as on the rescue team for both organizations. At Bush Wildlife Sanctuary, Scott has worked as a handler of ambassador animals, and he has learned over the course of his lifetime, over 60 years, about animal advocacy and wildlife conservation. In his spare time, he is also a master scuba diver with the PADI organization. He is an outdoor connoisseur of all animal, wildlife rescue, animal conservation, animal education endeavors, and he has become a real important person in Palm Beach County by way of his efforts and outreach to help the population learn more about these important ambassador animals and animals that need to be rescued in the wild. So welcome, Scott. Thank you so much for joining us for this interview today.
Well, thank you for having me, Jackie, and thanks for such a warm welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Please, again, tell us your full name, your hometown, and where you're currently living.
My name is Scott Vogel. Originally, I'm from Rego Park, Queens, and I still go back there all the time. I've been spending most of my time for the last 13 years in Jupiter, Florida, where I found a lot of great new ways to me to work with ocean conservation and wildlife conservation and doing things that really make me happy because I feel I'm making a difference.
You are making a difference. In a few words, what do you do? What is your passion?
I've always had this passion for adventure and being in the wild. Growing up in Rego Park, we weren't exposed to a lot of stuff. It's inside the city. It's a beautiful neighborhood. Even when I was little, some kids are restless. I didn't think that word quite fit. Later on in life, I figured out it was a wildness. Channel being a lot of energy. I was getting into trouble when I was little, more than most kids, getting injured more than most.
No way.
I like doing dangerous things and things out of the norm. It was my way of being. And eventually, I learned how to channel that into things that I found out I was passionate about because I didn't know when I was little. As time went on and I got more exposed to the oceans and as a Boy Scout to camping, these things became much more important to me. I started doing a lot more.
It sounds like you have been involved in animal conservation your entire life. I don't want to quantify that, but I did get into the numbers a little bit. So we're looking at many, many years of this.
Yeah, probably started
being part of your
around
life.
59 years ago when I learned how to swim.
It's amazing. If you were to pinpoint one thing, and I know you have all these different roles going on in your life that all kind of come together with this one main passion and main role behind them of wildlife conservation, what is your favorite part of your job?
It is making the difference. I know when I'm working with a private tour, a public tour, leading a field trip, I feel that I'm getting through to people and I make a difference out there. Whereas all the work I did when I was younger, I didn't think about that. I was making a difference, but I really wasn't thinking about it. My decision when I had much more free time in my mid-50s and I sort of retired and had lots of other time to give, I planned on being in animal care. I didn't plan on educating at all. I had been doing that for a long time. I wanted to work hands-on. My daughter Joanna would ask me, what are you going to do with yourself? I have plenty of things to do. What immediately bounced into my head was, I'm going to work at the zoo. I made it happen, but I didn't want to educate. I wanted to take care of the animals. But just about when I got started with that, my back went out in a way that's chronic, and I was in physical therapy for months. After trying to work like that in animal care, which is pretty much in the beginning scooping up poops all day.
Yes, very physical. Yes.
I went to one of my supervisor said, you know what? This isn't working. I need to switch into education. What a great move that was, because that's when I really learned how much I enjoyed doing that. Wouldn't have happened if my back didn't go out. Although my back bothers me every day, it's manageable. I'm glad it went out because it led to all these other really cool things.
And the chronic back pain. Mine has also led to interesting new journeys and things like this. As someone who has taken one of your tours at the Loggerhead Marine Life Center, you are so good at the education component of it. You taught us so much about the animals and how to do better and think about them every time that we go outside our door, really. I'm glad for your back having the little bit of pain that led you into this animal education component of your life because you're really good at it and
Well,
you're making a difference.
I found, and quite often something bad happens, so you do something else instead. It's called silver lining.
It totally is a silver lining. I'm so happy. Yay, that's your favorite part. You really are talented. If anybody is watching this and has not yet been to the Loggerhead Marine Life Center or Bush Wildlife Sanctuary in Juno Beach and Jupiter, Florida, you need to go. You need to go on a day when Scott Vogel is there because you are really special at this job that you do.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Let's dig a little deeper into your own need for adventure because it started 59 years ago, right? Have
Yes.
you always had this need for adventure on land and beneath the surface? Is this just something you were born with or acquired in scouts, or how did that go for you?
I was restless and had a wildness, and I didn't know what the need was. I have an older brother and a younger brother, and we were a pain in the butt to my parents. So we were getting shipped down to Florida a lot where we could really let off steam. The first year for that for me was when I was 7. They know we're going to be playing in pools and oceans. Better make sure they know how to swim. That's where it began.
So important.
My mom decided to send me and my brother to swim lessons. Yet a couple of days before that happened, I knew I do not want this fella to think that I can't swim. Snuck off on my own. I devised a methodical plan, scientifically thought out plan as a 7-year-old to teach myself step by step how to swim. Took me around 20 minutes, step by step.
Excellent. You taught yourself how to swim
And I didn't
before
tell
the
it.
lessons that were supposed to teach you how to swim.
And I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want anyone to know because then he would know I couldn't swim before I did this. Then she sent me to the lesson. Now the guy, he was hanging around where we were and he was at our pool. After 10 minutes, he went back to my mom, said, I can't teach him how to swim.
Hey, you
He
already
swims
got
just
it.
fine.
Wow, good for
And
you.
Vivian told me, my wife, when I explained this story to her, that says a lot about your personality. I never thought about it that way, but yeah, I think she's right.
I think she's right. I think you're a self-starter. You know what you want and you go after it. I think whether it's teaching yourself how to swim or knowing that you want to handle animals or teach other people about the animals, you do it and it's inspiring.
The undersea adventure started a year later when my older brother and I, same area of Florida, went to Woolworths because for $1 you could buy a mask. And
Okay.
$1 for a snorkel and $1 for a set of fins.
Wouldn't that be nice right now, right? Can't
Well,
even imagine.
for $3,
$3.
we had everything we needed to explore. We were going out there and swimming out to where the water was probably over 30 feet deep. It was so clear on nice summer days. We could see groupings of sand dollars from the surface. From around 30 feet deep. We were really far from shore. We were looking for landmarks on shore because shore itself was hard to find. We were doing surface dives, filling up bags of sand dollars. You could bleach them white and sell them to the vacationers for $1 a piece. We were exploring the oceans, earning a living.
Good for you. See that?
But we would
That's a little
see.
scary to me. 30 feet deep, free
I
dive.
was scared too. I was always scared out there, but I couldn't let that stop me. This was just too good to do. That fear never went away. That fear just makes me more alert, I think. We
Good
would
for
swim
you.
out and pass fish and little wrecks. The first time I saw scuba divers down there, I said to myself, I will do that.
And you have so many times in so many places around the world, right?
10
It's
years later, that
amazing.
happened
You
when I took a
predicted.
course in scuba and worked with that professor for the next 40 years.
Amazing.
Well,
Did you
working
guys
with
have a
students.
did you guys have a board out there with you or some sort of flotation
No.
device? Of course.
We
not.
had nothing, just us. I remember yelling at boats, hey, boats going by. We didn't have a dive flag or anything.
Right, nothing. Yeah.
Now, back then, if your kids came back in, everything was fine. But we lived to tell.
If only I could tell my kids that now. They always have eyes on them, even in the back of our head.
Mine too. I mean, if I did that, let my kids do that or my grandchild do that, I'd probably wind up in jail for
Yeah,
neglect.
exactly. Well, different times, right?
A
Different
little bit
times. Well,
different.
you live to tell the tale,
Yeah.
and I'm so glad that you did. Let's go into some quick fire questions where I'm just going to ask you some questions off the top of my head, and you can tell me what your favorite thing is. So, what is your favorite animal?
The wolf. Never met one, heard them howl, but that's my favorite animal.
Okay, maybe a spirit animal. Who knows? Favorite beach?
I would say where I live because I live close to the beach and it's a great beach, but I'm not going to use that as my favorite beach, although in many ways it is. The favorite beach I visited, I could say Hawaii and it's great, but no, because it's so built. We were in Costa Rica living in the rainforest on a
Gorgeous.
vacation. The rainforest ended at the beach. It was just forest and beach and us and magnificent. That's the nicest beach I've ever visited, although there are so many others, but that moment stands out.
Well, I think a lot of other people would agree with you. Costa Rica is beautiful. One day in my future, I will visit. I have not, but now I have a reason to go. When you're on the beach, you've got to read something, right? What is your favorite book?
I can't point out one favorite, but I could point out a trilogy that had an effect on me. I could also point out a double that had an effect. The trilogy, the early one is On the Road by Jack Kerouac. Two guys exploring back and forth across the country. The next one in that trilogy is Travels with Charlie. John Steinbeck did the same thing with his big poodle and loved it. And then, of course, Blue Highways by William Least Heat Moon later on did the same thing. These put an adventure travel thing in me about the internal part of the country. 1983, I bought a motorcycle to set off and do that my way with
For
no
you.
time limits. I wasn't working at the time, and a motorcycle forces you to seek shelter every night and socialize.
For you.
It never happened, but it had a big effect on me.
Did you take your bike on a wild adventure that you need to write
I
your own book version of?
did some cool traveling. The book never came about because all of a sudden, unexpectedly, work came up and stayed. And by the time I was able to do that again, that need to do that on a motorcycle for with no time limits just would not work with this. It wasn't part of what I really wanted as much as I wanted when I was 24.
Yeah. I know you have a dog now. I know you mentioned travels with Charlie. Can you imagine traveling with your Jack somewhere cool and
Sure.
fun like that and
What do you
exploring?
think, Jack? He's busy chewing on a little coconut.
Very busy, right? Mine is barking at somebody in the neighborhood. Anyway, what is your favorite movie?
But that's tough. I am a real movie buff. I would just give you three because one is too hard to single out. Godfather 1 and 2, but you got to laugh
The
too.
classic. Love it.
So the producers.
The producers is great too.
Those are the three. If I didn't have anything to watch, I could watch them. Enough.
Agree. Agree. Favorite place?
I could say the favorite place where I am right now. I live here because I love it. Favorite place I visited with my daughter, Joanna, when she was 11. Her and I spent tons of time together. We camped a lot and traveled a lot. I wanted to do a national park with her, and I wanted to do it right. We decided on Yellowstone. Rather than go out there and drive all around and see the cool things that people see, I contacted outfitters, and we got some horses, and we rode in and lived in the park for a few days, slept under the stars. We had one campsite where the fire pit and the fireplace around it had all these chips all around it, stone chips. It was rich with obsidian, and they would chip away, making their arrows there. And those chips were still all over the ground.
Obsidian everywhere. Wow.
Yes,
Beautiful.
obsidian chips everywhere. At night, one evening, we came face to face or very close to bison and bears and moose and elk. One night, the coyotes were really singing out there, communicating with each other of a big space. They would be howling. When their howling would start to slow down, we would howl and bring them back up again. And then they'd slow and we'd bring it up. It was a symphony of the wild. Chimal moment, living in the backwoods of Yellowstone and riding in August with our horses so high up that we were playing in snow, looking down at hawks soaring in the sky below us. It was very cool stuff. Now, we heard the wolves howling. We never got to see wolves. We got close. They wouldn't howl with us,
Yeah.
but the coyotes
Oh,
did. we would leave our horses in a meadow loose, and the elk would come down because elk are, I guess they're lonely and they lived higher up. In the mountains, because without wolves, everything lived low down because they had no enemies. When the wolves came back, the elk and the moose went to where they always belonged, not at the riverbeds, but higher up in the mountains where the wolves didn't want to go. When we were there with our horses, we would leave the horses out, and the elks would come down. And in the morning, we'd see all the elk and pack mules and horses all getting along, loving the company of each other, which
That's
I didn't
so
expect to see
beautiful.
that.
My goodness, that's so
So that's
beautiful.
a cool place.
What a cool bonding experience with your child, Scott.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've had many others, but that one,
Yes.
what's the favorite?
That,
This is
yeah,
the
of course.
favorite moment, I guess.
So the favorite moment, okay, and the favorite place being Yellowstone, if not here in Palm Beach County. Okay, last quick question. Favorite sport?
My brothers and our friends, we all had high energy levels, and we played everything. I played league stuff and everything. I can't watch a baseball game anymore, and basketball's hard to watch. I'll never get tired of watching football because of its action
Yes.
and danger
Yes.
and the stuff I can relate to.
So do you still like a New York team, or have you moved on to Florida?
No, I like the Giants no matter how terrible they are. The Jets too. I
It's
love
it's
watching.
a love affair. It's a lifelong commitment, right? And it's never easy, but yeah, agree.
I don't get tired of it.
Exactly. Well, good for you. Let's dig a little bit deeper into stuff you're working on at Loggerhead first and then at Bush. Do you have an idea of about how many total hours that you have spent volunteering at these wonderful animal conservation organizations?
Well, at Loggerhead and at Bush, I log in and out for my official hours, and I probably have close to 1,400 hours at Loggerhead over the last 9 years. But friends come by often, and I bring them on private tours.
Yep.
And those hours don't count, but the official hours are 1,400.
Awesome.
At Bush, I do the same thing, but those hours are a little lower, probably close to 800. But,
That's
getting
a
all
lot
those
of
hours
hours,
done at
Scott.
the
That's
same time.
a lot of hours. And this is just since the past 9 years that you've done this, and you're still going back and forth to New York doing your thing.
Right. I'm only in Florida 8 months a year. I would do a lot more if I were here more. It's a lot of time, but it still leaves me time. I'm running and swimming and biking and going to the gym and by the pool and
Doing
most
all your
afternoons.
adventure stuff, and you're
There's
still
a lot of balance.
yes.
Yeah.
So it's so important. What I'm trying to say is you have given so much to us in Palm Beach County in South Florida. You have given so much in terms of yourself, your time, your passion to these two organizations. I'm so glad that you moved in, that they're easy enough for you to get to. They're local for you because you really have made a difference for kids trying to learn, for adults. You make me think every time I walk on the sand based on what you taught me, how to think about the animals and how to behave responsibly every time I leave my door.
Let me say something about both organizations. I love what I do, but it's not strictly because of what I'm doing. It's how these organizations treat me and the rest of the people who give their time. They're great organizations to work for. They respect and appreciate us, and they show that, and they make it a lot of fun working there. And one of the great things about working at both places is the people.
It seems like great camaraderie. It's all about the teamwork, and everybody respects each other and is there to give back and for the animals and for the people around.
Yeah, so they appreciate me and they let me
Yes.
know it all the time.
That's wonderful. I'm so glad. I appreciate you too, for the record.
Well,
so
thank you.
much. Thank
And
you.
I appreciate you and always
Thank
have.
you. Thank you. Yes, we have
Your
known
viewers
each other.
may not know. I know you since just about when you were born.
I was going to say, you taught me how to scuba dive. You were there when I learned how to ski. You have been there forever. Joanna and I growing up, same time. And we're very lucky to be around, really amazing people like you. And still seeing you do your thing is very inspiring to me.
I don't plan on stopping.
Good for you. Don't keep going. Keep going. In a roundabout ballpark figure, do you have an idea of how many people you have given tours to at these organizations?
All year long, I lead tours for the Loghead Marine Life Center through our wilderness area, besides on the beach. That's around 15 a day, besides leading tours after that of people. It's over 9 years, average a dozen people per tour, and you're doing 2 a day. And all these
Exactly.
years,
Well, what I
40 weeks a
noticed
year.
what I noticed for our tours, we started as 4 people, right? And all of a sudden another family saw what you were teaching and they were interested, and then another family caught on, and all of a sudden you have this huge group of people learning from you about turtles. It's an amazing thing. I can see how there's an exponential effect on your words and what you have to share.
Now that I do a little more math in my head, it's probably more like 5 to 8,000. Right
It's
when
a
those
lot.
little kids come along, like you saw, I may have a group of 15 adults. I always tell them how much I want their questions. Please stump me. Sometimes I can't get much out of them, but then a couple little kids come over. I can get them involved, even though they didn't pay to be on this tour. Once I get them involved, it helps because they're quite willing to open up.
So inquisitive, right? So many questions. It doesn't
I
end.
utilize those little visitors all the time.
Yes, adorable. Okay, so about how many animals have you rescued or helped release?
At loggerhead. I'm on the rescue team, but not on it for long. I've gone out for burials where the animal didn't survive. We get washbacks, hatchlings, washing up on our beaches. Every time there's a big storm during hatching season, they can't go back out again because they've used up the yolk sac that they hatched with and swam out miles to where they belong. Storms bring them back in. They don't have a yolk sac anymore that enables them to soak up energy and swim out without eating. So they can't swim out. They can't go back to the ocean. I find them when I'm running the beaches. I just alter my run with hatchlings in my hand to get to the center and bring them in where they're not patients. They're just guests who will eat, and eventually we put them on a boat and bring them out. But I've probably done that with at least 50 hatchlings over the years. And I have worked releases when the turtles, adult or not bigger turtles, patients are ready for release. They've done all their rehab and they're well again. I work every release I can, and that's probably well over 50. Not everyone gets a public release for me to work, but if it's a public release, I'm there working it.
I know you had a big girl that was released a week or so ago. Dilly Dally, is that
Dilly
right?
Dally was around a couple of weeks ago. She was missing a flipper. Shark took it, but she healed well. Our veterinarian, Dr. Ben, had to remove the bone that was sticking out from its base and whatever tissue was there, sew it up. These healing processes can be slow and we have to ward off infection. But Dilly Dally was eating everything in sight as soon as the anesthesia wore off and had a very great energy level. And it was a pleasure to see her go back. Missing a flipper, she'll live a fine life anyway. They're very resilient.
Scott, you know so much about this stuff. I really admire and want to be more like you in terms of your passion for animals and your understanding for wildlife conservation. So, very simple question. When is turtle hatching season? When should we be careful, or if we're at the beach and running, when should we look for washbacks, or when is the best
Well,
time to be able to be aware of this?
hatching is really picking up right now. Nesting season started March 1st, but the only early turtles that are nesting are leatherbacks. They're magnificent, but we don't get that many. A month and a half later, the loggerheads start nesting. They're nesting at force now, but those eggs take a couple of months to hatch after they've been laid. So right now, hatching is really picking up. You don't have to really look for anything. Most of this goes on at night. Over 99% of it, they get to the water and they're fine. But occasionally there's a daytime hatch out and you might see turtles struggling in the sun. If you think they're fine, and it's a long way to walk to the ocean, the rules say never touch anything. If you're really in doubt, is this turtle okay or not? Bring it to the center. We have coolers outside. You could put turtles in those coolers anytime, day or night, and our staff will periodically during the day bring them in, check them out, get them out that night, or whenever we have a boat to bring them out if they need a boat. And when in
Amazing.
doubt, bring them in.
Amazing. I love that you know all this information. I personally have never seen this, but I know of people who've seen a hatch and turtles not making it to the beach. So I really appreciate that advice.
There
But
are predators out there too, and
yes.
that's part of nature. It's another reason they hatch at night. They don't have to struggle in the sun, and there's less predators, but there are so many hatchlings per each turtle that nests. The numbers game works in their favor.
How many, on average, how many would one nest be able to
Well,
hatch?
when a mama lays a nest, it's going to typically have anywhere from 80 to 120 eggs in it. But she's not just going to lay that nest. She's going to crawl back into the ocean and 2 weeks later come out and nest again, then go back into the ocean. Every 2 weeks, she might do this 5, 6, 7, or even as many as 8
So
times.
that one nest can have
Well, each nest will only have that average of 100. She'll make
right.
many
She can
new
make
nests
many new
every
nests. This is
2
from
weeks.
one mama turtle is creating this in one season,
Yeah,
potentially up to a few
800.
hundred, 800.
Yeah.
Wow. And how many of those hatchlings on average are making it?
Well, it depends what you mean by making it. Out into the ocean,
Out to the
plenty.
ocean.
A
Plenty.
lot of them make it
Good.
into the ocean, but a lot less make it those miles out to the seaweed beds that they need to make it to because things are eating them along the way. Birds may be eating them. A bunch make it to the sargassum, but we estimate that 1 out of 1,000 lives long enough to reproduce.
That is so sad. Wow.
You would think it's sad, but these guys have been around for almost a couple 100 million years.
Right. So there's
So
something to it.
this
There's
system
something
works.
to the system.
They're
Exactly.
all endangered now, all the species. But that's not because of this numbers game and what nature has devised. It's because of something else, and that would be
Right.
us.
That would be people. Yeah, unfortunately. How many animals have you helped to rehabilitate, or how many animal professionals? I know you mentioned veterinarians. Have you worked alongside?
Well, we have a huge team at both Bush and Loggerhead. I've worked with probably 30, 40, 50. Well, I'm not counting volunteers who are in animal care. I'm just talking about professionals, 30, 40, 50 uh, different rehabbers, it's vet techs, it's veterinary assistants. We have a main vet at both hospitals. It is really hard to find a turtle vet who specializes in turtles. As a matter of fact, the vet who was working there when I started, Dr. Charlie, he's world renowned. For many years, it was impossible to give IVs to sea turtles. They clot so quickly and so well. It prevents them from dying when a shark takes a limb, but you couldn't give them IVs. And turtles that really needed IVs to live, 85% of them would die worldwide until Dr. Charlie devised techniques that enabled us to successfully administer IVs to these turtles. And 85% of turtles in need of IVs use Dr. techniques worldwide. More than 85% of them survive to go back home again. These
Amazing.
veterinary people are amazing and so dedicated. We have people coming in the middle of the night when if a turtle gets found in the middle of the night, they're racing in for that turtle. There's always someone else on call, whether it's our vet or our vet tech. A very dedicated group. And they're not in it for the big money either.
Well, they're in it for the love, obviously, of the animals, right? And giving an IV to a turtle is something I've never ever thought about before at this moment. But I can imagine someone who's passionate about that is going to find a way, and they have. Amazing.
At the Marine Life Center, everything we do is open to the public too. Even inside our indoor hospital, everything can be seen. If a turtle needs an IV, you get to watch that. If it's in the back in our operating room, which is a sterile environment, is still cameras in there and you can see it on our big televisions. It's all there for everyone to see.
Great. Very basic question. What is your favorite type of turtle and why?
That's easy, and it always has been. The leatherback.
Yes.
They are the biggest of them all. They are the one we know the least about. They're also the most ancient species of turtle in the world today. They evolved many years before most of our other turtles evolved into what they are. They're these incredibly deep diving turtles who will go a half mile to a mile down. They don't live anywhere near shore except to come and lay eggs. It took me 7 years of working on that beach before I finally saw an adult leatherback come up and nest right near where I was on the beach. They're just amazing animals and fun to see.
I'm just picturing at the Loggerhead Marine Life Center the artwork that's on the wall that shows all the different types of turtles, at least the ones in Florida. The leatherback, like you said, is this massive sea creature, and I love that the back looks like leather with the seams over it, and it just they're able to swim a mile deep.
There's a reason that back is leathery. Their food that they eat lives so deep under the ocean. They like these gigantic jellyfish. They're medusivores. They only eat jellyfish and other squishy things. But if it's going to eat its weight in jellyfish every day and it weighs 1,500 pounds, these huge jellyfish live so deep, it's got to go half mile deep to get those jellyfish. And if it had a hard shell, the pressure would break the shell. And so they have a soft, leathery shell that can get squishy without breaking.
Hence the name, right?
Hence the name, yes.
So interesting. What is your most interesting fact about turtles when you're giving a tour at Loggerhead Marine Life Center?
There are so many different interesting facts. I think the coolest thing is that When they hatch, they crawl into the ocean, they're going to be out there for 25, 35, 40 years or even more before they're old enough to lay their own eggs, and they're traveling all over the place. While most species aren't crossing oceans, the leatherback is. It might circle the world a few times, but eventually it's using its memory to come back to the same beach it hatched on to lay its eggs, and it might have traveled a couple 100,000 miles. The method they use is their little tiny brains. They don't have big brains, but they have magnetite crystals in them. When they're walking into the ocean from their own nest, they're setting their internal GPS on where they came from. They're brilliant navigators. Now they get out into the ocean and they're using landmarks and recognizing magnetic fields of the earth to navigate, and it brings them back to where they came from.
That is amazing. One of the things that stuck with me from the tour is that you said that that particular beach at Loggerhead Marine Life Center in Juno Beach is I believe the most nested at beach in the world, if I'm remembering correctly.
It's the most densely nested loggerhead sea turtle beach in the world. And a beach in Oman, some years theirs is a bit denser, some years ours is. There are reasons for both. We have great protections here.
Yes.
Oman doesn't have the level of protections there. I hope their nesting stays as strong as it is now or gets stronger, but they don't have the level of protection. And I just hope that doesn't really mess things up in Oman.
Agree. What has been your greatest experience working with the folks at Loggerhead?
Well, my greatest experience in volunteering in general did happen while I was working at Loggerhead. Now, I volunteered at dog shelters and Queens College for many years and human hospitals, the Queens Zoo, Bush, and Loggerhead. But one day at Loggerhead, while I didn't have a tour to leave and I was just out there in our outdoor turtle hospital talking with guests, I noticed an older woman with a child who might have been around 11 or 12, probably a grandmother and grandchild, and they're looking at the different turtles. I realized that the grandmother is describing everything to the granddaughter. And I realized this little girl is blind. I approached them and I talked to them for a second. I said, "Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back." And I went and I collected in a big turtle carapace, which is the outer shell, lots of different biofacts and all different things. And I went back to them and I brought them into my own private area and I gave them a little private tour, which was all hands on. Because it's one thing for grandma to describe things, but I'm giving her a skull of a loggerhead so she can feel the skull and letting her know that these turtles have the biggest skulls and most powerful skulls of all turtles, asking her why she would think it might have that. And she realizes it must be eating things that it eats hard things.
So you let
Crunchy
her,
things.
so this little girl was blind, so you gave her a tour that was so suited to her needs.
Yes.
You let her touch everything and ask her own questions and understand things based
the
on
moment
touch. Amazing.
became really big for me when we're talking about the hard things that this turtle eats, and I hand her a big conch because loggerheads will smash conch, and she's holding the conch, and she didn't know what she was holding.
The actual shell. They'll smash the conch
whole
shell.
They'll smash the conch and eat what's inside. Nothing else in the ocean is smashing conchs. They're the only creatures with a jaw strong enough to do that. She's holding the conch. She doesn't know what it is. And I said, "Look, you know what a snail is?" And this is like a big snail.
Like a really, really big snail.
But she had never touched a snail. So I said, "This is a conch." And her whole face lit up. She had heard of conch. She never touched one. And and this was a school trip for her. She was doing a report. Her grandmother was thrilled and she was thrilled. I realized after that, I have to create the field trip for the blind. So I talked to our education paid staff, and one of them was already working on this. Her name is Lindsay French. She's not with us anymore. She moved on, but she's very involved, and I talk to her on occasion. She was already working on this, so I decided to work on it too from my own end, and I created a 45-minute field trip for the blind that was sticking your hand in tanks and feeling things that might feel like jellyfish and who eats that, the leatherbacks. And I gave her all my info and she did create the field trip for the blind. I like to think that I had some part of that. And that was really my ultimate moment in volunteering.
I'm so happy to hear. You're going to make me cry, by the way. That's so beautiful. I think that's so important to allow all different populations to access the information and get that hands-on learning. That's such a beautiful thing.
We do lots of things with the handicapped. We bring in troubled kids all the time. That we have one of our research people is deaf and she signs. So she does all of our signing and she'll do field trips for the deaf which is a little easier if you have a signer. The
Yes.
blind is a little more of a challenge. So we'll do all kinds of handicap. And we also have programs where we're all trained how to deal with people on the autism spectrum.
That's beautiful. So it's so inclusive, and it's so important that everyone has access to this animal education that you're providing. I appreciate you sharing that and identifying that there was an opportunity to do it better. Thank you, Scott.
One of
Thank
my
you.
favorite field trips to work with is we get kids from drug programs, troubled youth. A lot of people don't want to work with them. I like working with them. I consider it more of a challenge. If there's a group that no one wants to work with, I'll gladly work with them. And a lot of them may be aloof and off on their own. They're here because they're doing something that's mandatory anyway. But there's always a few
Who
who are really
connect?
interested in what you're saying and doing. And you don't have to get through to everybody. Sometimes
Well,
getting through to one is great.
maybe just connecting with you is enough, right? Or maybe connecting with one of the animals, who knows? But that's really special that is your talent. I mean, you have so many, but to be able to get through to audiences that are unique in that way. You are a special guy, Scott.
Don't let that get to my head. Stop.
It's true.
I feel glad that I found out how much I liked this stuff
Yes.
through an injury. And I consider that the blessing.
To complete, like you said, silver lining. Let's talk about what everyone can do, because we talked about being inclusive in all different populations. So what can we all do? You have this beautiful art at the center that is made of all pollution. What can we do to help turtles, other marine life animals
It's a
when we go
great
to the beach?
question. Many people feel sort of helpless. I'm just a person, and some of these problems are so big, I couldn't possibly make a dent. If you look at it the wrong way, that can really get you down. But we have a saying, think globally, act
Yes.
locally.
Yes.
I mean, if there are beach cleanups in your area, get involved in them. You meet a lot of other people with the same interests, and some of those have other ideas uh, on positive things to do. If you're walking on beaches, just you see plastic, pick it up. And plastic isn't the only problem, but it's a very big one, and it's really hard to try to even use less plastic. How do you go to the store and not buy stuff that comes in plastic? It's not easy. And recycling is good, but it's certainly not the answer because most plastics that you try to recycle don't ever get recycled. We can still reduce what we use. I'm on the social committee here where I live, and we have a budget. We buy stuff for our social room for people to use. There's all kind of plates and forks and spoons and
Yeah, of
knives that are
course.
disposable.
Disposable.
But you know what? You don't have to buy plastic. If you shop around, this biodegradable stuff that looks and acts just like plastic is there, and it doesn't even cost much more. It acts like plastic. You think you're using plastic, but you're not. And we don't spend any money when it comes to plastics like that. Besides that, what's worse than single-use plastics, and it's a lot of this out there, is zero-use plastics. When you order takeout, we all do it. If you don't request, don't put the knives and forks in with that. They come with it too. Most people then throw that out. That's zero-use plastic. That's worse than single use. Remember to ask them, please don't put in that. We have it at home. Do beach cleanups. Use less plastic. This is not underwater stuff, but camping stuff. If you're out in the woods and you see a plastic bag, could that plastic bag ever be a problem for a sea turtle? Most kids give the answer, yes, it could, because the ocean is downstream from everything. In the woods, you could be many, many miles away from ocean, but winds blow things around. They land in a stream. The stream flows into a river. The river empties into the ocean, and that winds up there. Keep your own self clean and conduct yourself properly and get involved in local organizations that do good work. That makes a big difference.
It's such useful advice that we could all do. I never thought about when you order takeout, if you're not going to use those plastic utensils, you don't eat them. Say that you don't eat them, right? There's zero use plastic. I
That's
never
zero.
thought about it. If you have to use disposable, opting for paper instead of plastic, or especially styrofoam, right?
There's plenty of things out there to biodegrade, and foam is the worst. I don't even think it can be recycled.
I mean, simple things that everybody can do. And by the way, I am not surprised at all that you are the social chair of your community.
I was the chair for years. I gave that up. I'm on the committee. We needed other young blood taking over being the chair. But they're older than me, but I still consider them the young blood.
Well, good for you. I'm glad that you passed the torch, and I know that you're spending a lot more time with the animals. And but that makes total sense to me because I'm sure that the whole community is interested in hanging out with you and learning from you and hearing your stories. So
We have fun and have fun events too. So,
yes,
and
exactly.
they're all, we try to do them all in a way that's environmentally sound.
Agreed. Okay, so let's switch gears to Bush Wildlife Center. I know you've been working there also for 9+ years. I've seen photos of you with Florida panthers, with alligators, even with a snake curled up around your head. You've had all these completely exotic, to me anyway, experiences with animals, very hands-on as a handler of these ambassador animals. What has been your greatest experience or experiences? Bush?
Well, it started from working at the zoo in New York, and I was an educator with the animals. When I moved down here and Bush was in the area, I wanted to be an educator there. A lot of the same animals, but because it's private, and we didn't have to deal with WCS. If you're working at a zoo, you need so many courses and classes to even touch an animal. They didn't have that. Were quite willing to train me in handling things. To me, it's educating the folks who go in there about all the animals. We have amphitheater presentations on site every day where I'll get to talk to people who are there to see the presentation about any particular animal, grab the animal, walk around, have them meet it up close and personal and learn all about it. Let's learn that they're not so scary and need our help when it comes to doing this or how we treat that. Even the looks on their faces when there's a snake or an alligator or a possum or a skunk or an owl right in front of them, using these same animals as their own advocates to go do outreach and plead their own cases and meet people during fundraisers and things like that who are there to give and help these creatures out. I really love doing the handling and especially doing outreach to handling. We'll go to schools, we'll go to fundraisers, we go to a lot of assisted living communities. Those people get so thrilled about us visiting. None of them miss this, and some need a lot of help and they're wheeled around, but they're getting to meet these critters too. It makes us feel great to get these older people and little kids involved in learning about these things and learning what they could do to help us. We are first and foremost a hospital that gets in almost 6,000 animals a year. The goal to get them out in the wild, but a lot of them, for one reason or another, is going to be healthy, but can't go back home. They live in habitats, and we get to talk to people about them. We don't know backstories on every animal because some came from a zoo or somewhere else, and we didn't get a backstory on it. We have backstories on a lot. The personal stories are really great to give, and it can give people a personal connection
Yes.
with a certain animal or a certain species, and they'll want to do things to help. Most of the community, the Juno Beach, Jupiter, Hope Sound, Boca Raton communities, they bring in animals from everywhere to us or call us and we go get them. We're pretty well known in the area and very well needed. Where else do you bring an animal that needs help?
No idea.
There is nowhere.
No idea. Yeah, this is totally new information to me. The photo of you with the Florida panther is just amazing to me. Scary, amazing.
He's my favorite animal at Bush now because I played with him as a baby.
What's his name? What's
His name
your
is Charlie.
panther's name? Charlie.
Charlie, I went to work early one day when Bush was in its old facility. We eventually had to move and have a brand new facility, but Charlie visited one day. He was seized. He was being sold illegally as a pet when he was a kitten.
Gosh, as
Law
a
enforcement set
panther.
up a sting and they got Charlie and locked up the person selling Charlie. He was given to a wildlife educator who was doing traveling work with different wild animals from California. He passed by our sanctuary and he came in, and I was there early. We weren't open yet. He invited me in to interact with Charlie, and he did what he did for his day there. And then he left. He always wanted us to have Charlie, but wanted to wait till after we moved out and moved into a new place rather than put Charlie through that stress. It
Okay.
took 5 years for that to happen. Then when we got Charlie one day and I saw Charlie, I didn't know it was the same cat. I'm looking at Charlie and he's a big old California cougar and he's snarling at me. And I was told that I know this cat and I actually played with him.
Oh my gosh, as a kitten, is that the correct
I
term?
love my friend Charlie and he snarls at me. He doesn't snarl at everybody, but when guests come by, I say, "Do you want to see Charlie smile?" And I'll walk up and say, "Hi, Charlie." And they'll get to see his teeth because That's how he feels about me.
He's your friend. Exactly. You bring
Well,
joy to so many,
he
including
doesn't
Charlie.
consider me a friend, but I love that about him.
He's a California cougar. I guess I don't understand the difference between California cougars and Florida panthers, other than they happen to reside in a different state.
It's a great point you're bringing up because he is a California cougar and we are a sanctuary for local wildlife. So why is Charlie there? That's the rule. We get local animals into our hospital, and those that need a place get a place there. But there are some exceptions to the rule. And a Florida panther and a California cougar are the same species. In Florida, our animals tend to be smaller, like a deer in Florida is very small compared to that same species of deer in Canada. The animals that have to deal with the winter tend to be hardier and bigger. And the
Yes.
tropical versions are smaller. There's only around 220, 230 tops Florida panthers in the state. That doesn't seem like a big number, but it's a stable number, and they're doing okay. When a cougar like Charlie needed a home, one cat cannot live with another cat. Unless they have a recently passed away cougar, can't take them. Probably, or before him, Tamala, who was another California cougar who we have. When they needed a home, we had an empty habitat. And we figured it's a good thing to take this animal in. It needs a home. And people can see when they look at this animal, the difference between it, which could be 200 pounds, and a Florida panther, which could be 100, the difference in head size and shoulder size. But they're the same species. So for educational and ethical reasons, it paid to break the rules to take in this animal that needs a home. That's why we have Charlie and Tamala.
You said that there are so many in the wild.
Well,
I hope to not encounter one, but I hope that if I ever do, that I'm with you because you would know what to do much better than me.
120 is not a big number for
No.
the entire state. Most of them live in the south part of the state. It's not a tremendous number at all. But back in the late 80s, it was down to like 24.
Wow.
So
okay.
this number is okay.
This number's
If it
okay.
would get much bigger, they'd have some public pushback because they do get in trouble. They may want a pet. They may eat livestock. We wouldn't want the public turning on them either.
Right. So this is a comfortable number that's grown organically over time. Yeah. Or not organically through conservation efforts.
Yes, with human help.
Yes. So similarly to what can we do at the beach for marine life, what can we do in our everyday travels to make for a better environment for these animals that are wild and living in our environment here in Florida?
Some very simple things are when you're driving down the road, you're eating an apple, you're done with the core, you have the core, it's biodegradable, toss it out the window. Those things aren't good. Only
I was going to
because
say, where's he going with this?
because things come to eat that apple core. Opossums will come to eat that apple core. Things come by. Deer like eating apple core. You're attracting wildlife to the
Into
road's
the
edge.
street, into danger.
And bugs will come by. We have kestrels living in Florida. They're really fast. They're small. And they're great at getting bugs. Lots of bugs on the side of the road if they're eating banana peels and apple
course.
cores, and these birds will, you see them on the phone, on the wires, the electric wires on the side of the road.
Yes.
They'll swoop down to grab the bug and occasionally get hit by a car. That's a simple thing. Be very careful with garbage in general. If you live in a home that's in an area that's wooded and you leave garbage out or not contain your garbage cans properly, bears come by. Bears learning to eat from human garbage become problem bears. Problem
Yes.
bears wind up being dead bears. We can coexist with bears by just treating our garbage right. They live in every state. Black bear human interactions, although you hear of them when they happen, are incredibly rare.
Yes.
So they can't unlearn a bad habit, and we have bears living at the sanctuary whose mama taught them some bad habits, and they can't be out in the wild. We have them because they're going to go to humans looking for food. So treat your garbage right. Take care of your wild spaces. Don't use things like chemical fertilizers or chemical insecticides on your lawns because we need bees as pollinators. These things spread all over where you don't even want them. Our bee populations are in trouble. So use natural things. Plant wildflowers instead of lawns. Lawns are deserts for wildlife. Let natural wildflowers grow, at least in a portion of your land, and this helps everything. So these are little things that
everyone can do.
make a big, big difference. Put an owl box in your backyard. Owls will move in. Screech owls. And they're so cool to see. And what do they eat? Little lizards and little bugs. You don't want the bugs in your yard. They might eat mice. Who wants mice?
That just for
and they'll move in.
Adorable.
Leave your snakes alone. They're getting rid of things you don't want. They're getting rid of invasive things. The snake, These are all of our friends.
These are all of our friends. I agree. Let's talk more about the adventure side of Scott, because I know that you're a master scuba diver with Patty. You taught me how to scuba dive, started at Queens College, and we had our practice dives in Riviera Beach over 20 years ago. I know you've been doing this even longer than that, and education is an area of passion and talent for you. You were extremely good and solid when it came to teaching me how to scuba dive at something that I'm very afraid of to this day.
You were easy.
So, well, thank you. So, how and when did your scuba diving adventure begin? I know we talked about being out to sea for the sand dollars when you were young with your brother. When did your scuba adventure begin? Where has it taken you thus far? And where would you like to go with it?
Well, 10 years after my adventure as a kid with the sand dollars, I took a course in Queens College with Professor Hohen,
Yes.
who ran the scuba, ski, and wilderness survival programs. And for the next 40 years, I dove, skied, and camped with him and students. These are courses for credit all over. And that was all volunteer work.
Yes.
It was a lot of hard work, too. You remember lugging tanks around?
Oh, yes, absolutely. There was nothing glamorous to learning.
It was a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. It gives you access to this underwater world that's just incredible. If you haven't gone underwater, it's just eye-opening how many animals are living down there and how beautiful the colors are and nature and harmony. I can only imagine the things that you saw for 40 years with Dr. Hohen, who was an incredible
40 with
soul.
him, 45 since he's gone 5 years now.
Yes.
It's taken me all over the world. I have a little list here because I would forget places. All over the eastern coast of the U.S.
Yes.
Florida, Gulf of Mexico, Cuba, the whole Caribbean.
Yes.
Mexico, both Gulf and Pacific side, and Cabo, and Panama, and Costa Rica,
Yes.
Hawaii, the Galapagos.
Amazing.
Southeast Asia, Thailand, Cambodia, and Laos, Greece. So it's taken me all over. The adventures were great. I learned while doing this work at Queens College, fun to hang out for 10 days with a group of college kids.
Yes.
You're teaching them how to dive and you're working, but after 2 or 3 days, they're not really learning much about how to dive. They're already pretty much got it under their belt. You're diving with them, but you're also hanging out with them. You're swimming with them in the pool. We're influencing them. That influence is important because people may think the ocean's great, but once they start diving in it, a lot of them develop this new appreciation, this respect, a desire to get involved, and a passion gets created. A lot of people think that divers may be doing harm to the ocean, and there are some who do, harvesting things they shouldn't harvest. But for the most part, people who learn recreational diving, they're passionate about the ocean and they're helping. If you're a recreational diver and you're going out on dive boats, well, you're not bringing up stuff you shouldn't bring up anyway. Captains aren't allowing that. So for the most part, the positives by far outweigh the negatives, and you create passionate advocates for the ocean. I realized that early on. That was one of my goals. They're asking us tons of things about what we're seeing down there. They're putting it all in such a positive way. It's the only way we know how to look at it.
You can tell them anything they want to know about any marine animal, especially loggerhead turtles and beyond. Wow, you are really the right guy to be asking questions on a dive boat.
I did this for over 30 years, diving with all these turtles before I knew much about them. I didn't learn anything about them until I started working at the Marine Life Center. That's when I just accumulated the turtle knowledge. I didn't know one species from another. My first 1,000 turtle encounters while doing 40 years of diving off the Florida coast.
Do you appreciate them differently now when you dive, having that knowledge of working at loggerhead?
Sure, because I do like the fact that I can't answer every question about them. I do get stumped, which is a cool thing, but I like being a legitimate sea turtle expert. I enjoy when people ask me after a tour, where did you study marine biology? Never did. Picked it all up because I wanted to.
Just like how you taught yourself how to swim, you had this timeline and this goal and you did it. And here you are, you're diving 1,000 times, encountering sea turtles, and then making the connection to then volunteer at this wonderful organization that conserves wildlife. It's a journey, Scott, and you're living it. You're living the dream.
I'm not a marine biology expert, but I am a turtle expert. But I do like knowing a lot about what goes on down there. I know a lot about the local wildlife, but I also like that when medical professionals come into the Marine Life Center, I like that because I make sure I talk to our veterinary staff that I can talk to them about the treatments at a level that they can grasp and they'll understand. And I want to know that stuff. I like the fact that I opened up myself as a sponge and it was so easy. It came really naturally. That was all pretty much a surprise to me, a pleasant surprise.
What is your greatest learning from your deep sea adventures, Scott?
Well, the discovery in me is how much I enjoyed and how good I am, which was a surprise at teaching it. Because I worked at the college for 35 years and I helped out a lot with students, did checkout dives, did a little bit of classroom work, would work at the pool one-on-one with any students who were slower. I never really considered that teaching. I considered that more being a helping hand, although it was teaching too. It was only later on that I took it into a much higher level, starting with the zoo, that it surprised me how good I am and how much I enjoy it. So that self-discovery about me was really fulfilling. Also, I told you I had a wildness in me when I was younger. That wildness was dangerous, needed direction. In many ways, it was self-destructive because it was no channeling and I didn't understand what it was. It didn't happen when I was little. It sort of happened later on. I, developed really good, productive ways to channel it in ways that made me happy and was productive out there
To
too.
everyone else, to everyone that you encounter, and to
But that was a
animals.
long journey.
It's
With
all
a lot
about the
of impacts
journey.
along the way. A lot of hospital room visits and emergency room visits and burning bridges.
I'm so happy that you found your path and you found your passion and you found yourself really in all these adventures and animals. I don't know how you remember it all. I would like to hear on a future interview the questions that stumped you, because I've seen a few kids ask you some out there questions live and you don't hesitate to at least attempt to give them an answer. So I know you
That'll
have
be
a
the next
the
chapter in
next
that.
chapter. It's funny to hear that you had a wild side growing up, because you really channeled it so well into your passions in life.
Oh, you're gonna make my head too big. I don't consider great things that I'm doing. I'm doing things that make me happy and I know make a difference. And I guess in its way, it's great. I'm very pleased with myself for figuring that out.
Yes.
Getting here and knowing these two facilities were here, which I did not know before we checked out this area. Thank God for that. The network of people I get to have and make lifelong friends with and connections with. One of them, who I love and miss, is your dad, 41 years ago. Part of getting to know your dad was also bringing me skiing all over the world too, doing that and also influencing people on those trails.
You've been there all along the way: skiing, scuba diving, adventure. Both of us happen to be from New York and now in South Florida in Palm Beach County. Now I can take my kids to go see their animal conservation guru and learn all about these important things that we can do to help.
I look forward to our future adventures.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Scott, for your time today. And I look forward to chapter 2. We'll talk soon. So thank you so much.
Okay,
And
well, thank you for having me.
have a wonderful day.
Okay, you too. Bye.
Bye.